What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sitdown. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, if you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet, or you're living under a rock, I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sitdown video. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into another mafia topic. He was a pillar of society. They should build a statue of him in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Those were the words of former Gambino member and informer Michael Scars DiLeonardo about our subject today. He was regarded as one of the pillars of that community in Bensonhurst, and we're going to get into him on the show. The story of Anthony Spero next on Sit Down Shorts. Anthony Spero was born February 18th, 1929 in Brooklyn, New York. He would begin his mob career in the 50s. And as we know, any mob associate, the job at hand is earning. And for Anthony Spero, it began pretty early. He would come under the tutelage of a very famous Bonanno Crime Family member, a man that knew how to earn, a man that you want to be under or learn something from at some point in your life. One of the biggest names in the Bonanno Crime Family in the 50s and 60s was Carmine Galanti. And there were things that Anthony Spero would learn from Carmine Galanti that would allow him to, at some point down the road, take on the same mantle as Galanti was able to do. Anthony Spero would early on excel in earning. It was said at one point in his life he had a major loan sharking book. He was involved with many things, and at one point, I'm sure, was involved in the drug trade. In fact, many members in Brooklyn of the Bonanno Crime Family at one point were involved in the drug trade. It was a main moneymaker for the Bonannos. In 1977, Anthony Spero would get the call. He would become a made member of the Bonanno Crime Family. Now, at that ceremony as well, Carmine Galanti would proceed over the ceremony, and also inducted that night was Joseph Big Joey Messino. Also alongside was Joseph Chili Jr. Now, Chili, according to the government, is still involved with the American Mafia. He can be seen here several years ago walking into court in a Reebok tracksuit. He would get nationwide attention due to wearing Crocs sandals to his court appearance. So that night, all those members were made, and Anthony Spero would have his button. It would not take long for him to become a very well-known and important member of the Bonanno family in Brooklyn. It was said that Anthony Spero was an eccentric individual. Many people that knew him said that when you talk to Spero, you would never really talk about organized crime business. You would talk about baseball, good food, women, things that most men like to talk about. He would be married and have two daughters and would maintain a home in Staten Island. He would be regularly seen in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, flying pigeons. He enjoyed pigeon racing and keeping pigeon coops, and he would pal around alongside Bonanno member Sonny Black Napolitano, who would also enjoy pigeon racing. It was said you could be seen Anthony Spero on the roof of multiple buildings waving big flags, trying to attract his pigeons. He was an eccentric guy. He was also someone that knew how to make money. And as I said, he was someone that excelled in loan sharking. He'd work out of a social club at 1724 Bath Avenue, and he would create very interesting ways to make money. It was talked about Anthony Spero that he was a wizard in running Joker poker machines. He would install them pretty much everywhere he could put them in. He would work with local businesses and give them a great rate, and he would make tons of money. You can make a lot of money of Joker poker machines, and that was something that really, for multiple years and decades of his career, Anthony Spero would make money at. It was also said that one of the interesting ways Spero would make money is the illegal firework business. As we know, cargo hijacking, contraband is a major source of money for the mob, but Spero excelled in firework sales. He was said at one point to make millions of dollars in the illegal firework business, and it was known that every summer he would put off an elaborate fireworks display in his area of Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. It was talked about that he would feed the community. Everybody loved him and everybody knew him. You can say what you want about Anthony Spero, but he was very well known. And as Michael Scars said, a pillar of that community. He was a loan shark, as I said, and was very much someone that would work with people in the community if they owed him money. One gangster would say at one point, you could go on the lam and know that Anthony Spero wouldn't do anything. You could always pay him whenever you wanted. But he made a lot of money as a loan shark. People knew by his reputation alone, you probably wanted to pay Anthony Spero. Now, any good higher up in any crime family that makes their ascent, and that's exactly what Spero would do. He would need trusted people around him. By the mid-'80s, Anthony Spero was growing in the Bonanno crime family, and he would be called upon really to become one of the members of the mantle of the family. In the mid-'80s, Stevie Beefs Canone would have health issues and would die in 1985. He was the consigliere of the family, and Anthony Spero would be called upon to be the consigliere of the Bonanno crime family. As we know, Joey Messino is making his ascent and would ultimately become the boss in the early 90s. But Messino was a trusted associate of Anthony Spero. They knew each other, and they would act really as emissaries and run the family for most of the 80s and into the 90s. So Spero is making his way up and was being very trusted by the family. So things are good for him. Alongside, he had trusted members and emissaries. Now, the individual I'm about to talk about, at one point, Spero would not be happy with, and I'm sure at certain points would kind of regard him as a bit of a lunatic. One of his main conduits and messengers was Joseph Benanti. Now, Benanti, at one point, was a Marine. He was actually from the Lower East Side and was regarded as a wild man in mob circles. He was not much of an earner, but for Anthony Spero, he was an important member of his team in Brooklyn. Another individual that would be around Joey Messina was Murray Kufeld. Now, Kufeld was a trusted emissary, and at one point would act as a messenger when Anthony Spero would go to jail many years later. He had actually owned a car service in Brooklyn, and it was very close to the hangout of Anthony Spero. He would be seen allegedly hundreds of times at Anthony Spero's social club at 1724 Bath Avenue, and would be a trusted confidant of Anthony Spero. Now, as I said, Spero was a pillar of the community, according to D. Leonardo, but that wouldn't mean he wouldn't take care of business if he needed to. And he was known as a reckless guy as well. And he would dole out punishment if he was needed. He was a ruthless guy, and he would be indeed called upon to take care of some pieces of work in the Bonanno crime family's name. In the early 90s, an individual is going nuts in the Bonanno crime family. Gus Faraci is going off cold-cocked, killing people, and involved with the murder of a DEA agent. Okay, obviously, this is a major problem for the Bonanno crime family. During the hit on Faraci, things happen. Things need to be doled out. And one of the individuals that's called upon to take care of Faraci is a young hood called Louis Tuzio. Now, Tuzio wants to be made. He wants to get his button. He wants to be a respected member. So the Bonanno crime family calls on Tuzio to take care of Gus Faraci. Now, during the hit on Faraci, the driver of the car, Joey Scalfini, is shot as well. He doesn't die, but he's shot. Now, Tuzio doesn't really seem to care and hopes that he's going to become made. The problem for Tuzio was Scalfini was the son of a John Gotti pal. And for Tuzio, this was a major problem. Gotti was the boss of the Gambino crime family and a trusted friend of Anthony Spero. Gotti would go to Spero and say, look, Scalfini was the son of my guy. He needs to go. In hopes of being made, Tuzio jumps at the opportunity to go meet high-ranking members of the Bonanno crime family. Now, Spero would dole out this assignment to a individual coming up in the family, an individual called Daniel Mangelli. Mangelli would kind of create the scheme to lure Tuzio to a meeting to get made, hopefully. And in early 1990, Tuzio would be killed. He'd be found shot to death at the corner of Avenue L and East 4th Street in Brooklyn in a Chevy Camaro. Tuzio didn't handle a piece of work the right way and was dealt with very quickly by the Bonanno Crime Family. So as we know, Spero could, be a ruthless individual and dole out punishment if needed. Louis Tuzio found that out very quickly. Now, any mob boss, any mob leader of an area needs trusted associates and young guys willing to put in work. This is a norm throughout mafia society. In fact, this is a norm in criminal society. It doesn't matter what way of walk of life you come from. The associates in the family put in work, and they're called upon by the older members of the group. Now, for Spero, through Joseph Benanti, he would come across a group of individuals in the neighborhood that he policed called the Bath Avenue Crew. They were a ragtag group of kids that grew up in the neighborhood. It was said that they were really in their early life. They would go on messengers requests from mobsters. They would, bookmake and things like that. They were learning the game very early, just like members like Anthony Spero would do many years before. According to an individual in the Bath Avenue Crew, this person, James Calandra, who now has a YouTube channel, he would talk openly about the things the Bath Avenue Crew were willing to do to get the attention of Anthony Spero. They were associates that wanted to earn, they wanted to put in work, and they wanted to eventually all become members of the Bonanno Crime Family. It was very clear. And this is something that we hear from Calandra, we hear from all these folks that would ultimately testify against their brethren. Calandra talks about today that, he was preyed upon by Spero, and, this is something that was not his fault. He was preyed upon. But that's not exactly what Calandra would say. In a Nat Geo documentary where they would talk about the Bath Avenue Crew and Anthony Spero, according to Calandra, he would say, quote, "As we got older, we became more dangerous. They were tough and willing. Everyone that knew the Bath Avenue Crew knew they were a gruesome bunch of guys, according to NYPD Detective Tommy Dades. They were willing to kill people. They were willing to sell large amounts of narcotics in Brooklyn. They were willing to commit home invasions. They were willing to commit bank robbery, because at the end of the day, this group knew they had to kick it up. They had to kick everything up." And according to Jim Walden, a prosecutor, he would say that the Bath Avenue Crew really excelled at making money and kicking it up to not only Joe Benanti, who couldn't earn on his own, but Anthony Spero. So for Spero, these were people he wanted to know. These young guys were the ones that would take care of pieces of work. Now, the problem for young guys and for these older guys is a lot of the time the younger guys are the ones that do them in. Spero was a stone cold gangster, and these guys will come back to haunt him down the road. Also in the Nat Geo special, James Calandra would gloat, quote, "We were Spero's muscle. When he needed something done, we were at his disposal." That does not sound like someone that was preyed upon by Anthony Spero. The truth of the matter was, whether it was Paul Galino, Fabrizio Di Franzese, Tommy Reynolds, or Joey Calco, they wanted to become members of the Bonanno Crime Family, and they were going to do it by any means necessary. Now, in early 1991, Anthony Spero would have a problem on his hands. An individual named Vincent Bickelman. Bickelman was known in Bensonhurst as a drug addict. He was someone that would rob people for crack money, and he had a problem that he would encounter in the early 90s. Spero had a daughter called Jill, and Jill had a home in Brooklyn. Bickelman at one night would rob her home of necklaces and furs and all sorts of stuff, and he would proceed to try to sell it on 18th Avenue in Brooklyn. Spero would get wind of this, and obviously that was a bad move for Vincent Bickelman. Look, you want to rob people, go ahead. It's not a good thing you should do. It's a scumbag move, quite frankly, but you definitely don't want to rob the home of a Bonanno boss daughter. Just not a smart thing to do. Now, for Anthony Spero, he could let his young whippersnappers get their feet wet and take care of a piece of work for him. That's a norm in the mob. It's just something that's always done. He would call upon Bath Avenue crew lunatic Paul Galino. Now, from what I understand about people that were in that life and are still known to be in that life, they would regard Galino as a major lunatic. He was the killer of the group alongside Reynolds and D. Franzese. And Galino wanted to be a member. He would do what he had to do, just like Louis Tuzio a year or so before. Galino would be called upon to take care of Vincent Bickelman. And in late 1991, he would stalk Bickelman to an area of Bath Beach where he would shoot him 6 times. Now, for Galino, he would assume that this was a fast track to being made. The problem for Galino was he was not particularly patient. And by this point, many members of the Bath Avenue crew were drug addicts. They were probably doing things maybe they shouldn't do, but they really didn't care. They were reckless psychopaths that preyed upon areas of Bath Avenue. And for Galino, he wanted to be made. He wanted to know why he wasn't getting made. He would approach and have a sit down with Anthony Spero. Now, why Anthony Spero at this point in his career is still dealing with street associates doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know why this wasn't done through other people. But according to witnesses in and around that time, Galino would have a heated conversation with Spero on the streets. During the confrontation, he would shove Anthony Spero. Now, for anyone that knows anything about the mob, if you were an associate and not a member of the mafia and you assault or do anything to hurt a Bonanno, Gambino, any kind of family made member, you will be killed. It's very simple. For Spero, this was the last laugh for him. He would order members of the Bath Avenue crew, the members that knew Galino well enough to be able to get to him. By this point, Galino was in hiding, and Spero knew the only people that could kill him were his friends. He would call upon Joey Calco and Tommy Reynolds, seen here with the shit-eating grin on his face next to Galino to the right. He would call upon those two to kill their friend. They would answer the call and kill Galino in a home in 1993. So this is the way of the streets. And it's no secret. This is what happens in the streets. It almost at some points comes as a surprise to James Calandra that things like this go on. Remember, all of these individuals had a dream to become members of the mafia. And some of them often regard as things that happen to them as surprises. This is the mafia. It's not a Boy Scout troop. And they're just going to say, hey, it's all right. You guys are friends. I won't ask you to do anything. That's how it goes. Anthony Spero would continue to make money. However, in 1994, as a part of his company, Sunstar Vending, they were involved in a dispute with an individual called Mark Goldberg. Mark Goldberg was a rival in the video poker machine. He would turn up dead, actually. But in early 1994, Anthony Spero would be jammed up on racketeering charges by the federal government in an extortion scheme involving Joker poker machines. Goldberg would turn up dead, and Spero would be charged with the murder. So this would be a major problem for Anthony Spero, and the feds had hoped they could take Spero off the streets. Ultimately, though, he would be acquitted of the murder, and in 1995, get 2 years in federal prison for his Joker poker enterprise. So Spero would have to head off to prison for the first time and serve his sentence. His family was in good hands, though. Joey Messino was really anchoring a well-oiled machine in the New York City mob. Spero would be released in 1997, but it wouldn't last long. In 1999, Anthony Spero would be indicted alongside other members of the Bonanno Crime Family in a huge racketeering indictment, and he would be charged with 3 different murders, including Louis Tuzio, Vincent Bickelman, and Paul Galino. It was alleged by the government that he'd ordered all these hits, and members of the mob would carry them out. The problem for Anthony Spero, and he knew it, the gangster that he was, this was likely going to be the end. Not 1, not 2, not 5, not 6, but 8 individuals would testify against him, including former members of the Bath Avenue crew, Joseph Calco, James Calandra, and another individual of another crew, Lucchese associate, Michael Flattop DeRosa. All those individuals would testify against Anthony Spero. Now, James Calandra would say in his YouTube channel that he gave, quote, honest testimony. And he may have. I'm not one to talk about his testimony. However, he gave damning testimony. And let's remember, this was a grown man that was committing crimes on behalf of hopefully being made in the mafia. Remember, he made his decisions, Jimmy Calandra, Joseph Calco, Michael DeRosa. All of these individuals didn't want to go to prison and decided to cooperate against Mr. Spero. Now, let's remember, Mr. Spero is a known murderer. He killed people, had people killed. He was a bad man. But it's important to understand all of the people in this life know what they're getting into. And I guess for me, I'm not in that life, nor do I have any room to talk about it. It's just for me, if I were in that life, which I am not, I would take my punishment, I feel like. But that's, again, why I don't commit crimes, because I don't want to be faced with these decisions. So for Anthony Spero, he would face damning evidence. And in 2002, he would be convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Now, an interesting quote would be found out from Anthony Spero. According to mob rat Little Al Diarco in his book titled Mob Boss, he would claim that as acting boss, Anthony Spero would, quote, one time tell him, all the family members of those who become rats should be killed. Women, children, everything, murder them. That's the kind of guy Anthony Spero was. He was a ruthless individual, but at the end of the day, he assumed and held his gangster ethos close. Again, I'm not sure what women and children have to do with that. However, Anthony Spero made his feelings known about rats till the end. Anthony Spero would die in 2008 at the Federal Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Butner, North Carolina. He was 79 years old. Now, we see differing opinions on Anthony Spero. James Calandra would say he preyed upon young individuals. And while a little of that is true, we have to remember, as I said, James Calandra and other members of the Bath Avenue crew were grown men. Now, for some members of the Bath Avenue crew, they would go to prison and get long sentences and are still there. For Calandra and Calco, they were on the streets, one of which has a YouTube channel and the other lives a fairly nondescript life. As I said, people like Mikey Scars called Anthony Spero a pillar of the community. I guess for me, which my opinion doesn't matter much, Anthony Spero is a gangster through and through. And I don't have much opinion on him because for me, I don't like to give my personal opinion to these people. At the end of the day, Anthony Spero is someone, though, that is a very important member of the Bonanno Crime Family. The Pigeon Man was an interesting character, and will be a remembered name in Brooklyn for years to come. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure you hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, make sure you subscribe, like I said, so you don't miss another sit down.